Welcome to Suzuka, and it has been a fascinating day here in Japan. The start of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, just media day, but probably one of the most interesting and exciting media days that we're going to have all year, I think, because it was off the back of the huge news, the only storyline that there is, that Liam Lawson has been replaced at Red Bull after just 2 races and that Yuki Tsunoda is in. So Yuki gets a chance at his home Grand Prix to finally drive for Red Bull. It's been over 4 seasons that he's been with the junior team, and he's clearly been desperate to get that opportunity, and was basically saying that it was brutal when he was overlooked at the end of last year for Liam to go into that seat as well, but that Liam understands that's part of the game, that if you don't perform, Red Bull are going to make a change. And it was quite interesting actually listening to Yuki today. One, he's hugely excited. He's also very confident that he can do a good job in that Red Bull and thinks that he can do a better job than many others have been able to do so far alongside Max Verstappen. But he was also saying that it's one of the reasons Red Bull is so successful is because it is so harsh with its drivers, because it makes these sorts of decisions, kind of brave decisions, sometimes ones that people criticise them for. But at the same time, he said that's what also draws a lot more attention, because it's the sort of thing that nobody else does. And it is true that they do have 2 teams. So listening to Liam Lawson speak today, I actually had a little bit of a chat with him as well, and he said, it did come as a shock, and he was kind of hurt by the decision because he hadn't seen it coming. But then he very quickly moved on and is now focused on the job at hand, which is performing for the Racing Bulls team. And he said, at least I still have a seat in Formula One. It's not like my career's just ended. I do have the chance to go out there and essentially prove them wrong, show them that I can still do it. The Racing Bulls car is a very competitive car. In fact, it could well be an easier car to drive, and Tsunoda himself alluded to that today. He said that the Red Bull does look very tricky. Everything he's heard and seen says that it will be a tough car to drive. But while Tsunoda feels like he's got the tools and the experience to get on top of it, Lawson feels like going back into the Racing Bulls car, he will be able to get comfortable soon enough. He thinks it'll be a similar enough car to last year, where he did perform very well. Now, he's not saying he'll do it straight away this weekend. Obviously, he hasn't been able to test that car, and it's all happened very quickly over the last 10 days. So it's not like he's going to be straight up to speed, or he's not expecting to be. But if it is a bit more of a forgiving car and a more comfortable car to drive, then hopefully there will be a bit more confidence built up over the coming couple of days. And as the buses show up behind me, some of them bringing fans to and from the circuit, even on a Thursday here at Suzuka. I must say, you get some amazing fans here in Japan. They're packing the grandstands on a Thursday. They're all in the pit lane. The excitement from those fans for this change is enormous. It's one of the things we do have to remember. We're kind of hiding away in the paddock. We have our own views of things. We're maybe harsh with some of the questions we ask, some of the topics we talk about, but then you go into the fan zones, and home racer Yuki Tsunoda in a Red Bull, massive interest. It's enormous. His face is already everywhere in Red Bull gear. There's so many fans that were outside the Red Bull garage. Red Bull running a special livery this weekend, a Honda tribute livery. They are looking back at the first Honda winner, essentially, from 1965, and have emulated that livery on the current Red Bull car for the last year of the Red Bull-Honda partnership, before Honda become Aston Martin's work supplier in 2026. So the final Japanese Grand Prix for that, and I did hear it took a lot of work over a number of years with that idea to get it to come to fruition, but the car looks stunning, to be fair, and it already led to increased interest, loads of interest in the Red Bull, even if Yuki hadn't been in it, but with Yuki being in it, even more so. The merchandise stalls are selling a lot of gear in the fan zone, I must add, but maybe you can get some knockoff Racing Bulls gear. We're not too sure. We have to go and see if they've reduced the prices of that. But on the topic still of the switch, basically every driver was asked about it. It wasn't just a day where that was one topic and there were multiple others. There wasn't actually a huge focus on Ferrari's disqualifications from the last race, for example. There was a little bit, but realistically, the biggest line to come out of Lewis Hamilton's session was him saying, it's surprising when a team would drop a driver after 2 races, but I'm not surprised that that team would do that. And to do so that quickly is overly harsh. But he's one of many drivers that does rate Yuki and wants to see Yuki do well. And I'd say there was an overriding feeling of confliction in the paddock, not just from the media, but also from the drivers themselves, because they were feeling like, well, Yuki deserves this chance and should have had it really over the winter. He should have been straight into that car. But at the same time, Liam doesn't deserve to be dropped after just 2 races. That's far too soon to make a decision on a driver who has just driven for the first time on each of the tracks that we've raced at this season. The second one, of course, was a sprint weekend as well. So it's all been very, very harsh on Liam. And nobody really wanted to see the change happen in that sense, but then they want them both to perform well. Now, obviously, if both of them perform well in their new roles, yes, Liam proves a point, but so too does Yuki, and so too do Red Bull, because they get a driver performing better in that car. So, a lot of people, they're kind of conflicted emotions around it, but it's going to be fascinating to watch this weekend. It's going to be, the main storyline. There was a little bit from Carlos Sainz today about his struggles in the Williams, and he's got a lot of experiments he wants to try and get up to speed. Jack Doohan as well, there's been a bit of pressure on him. He's going to have to sit out FP1 while Ryo Hirakawa drives, so there'll be another Japanese driver in FP1. Both of those will be interesting to watch how they get on as the weekend unfolds, but none of it really does come close to what's been happening at Red Bull. Even the McLaren drivers and the fight between the two of them potentially for the championship and the race win on Sunday was just a side note, and all the focus is on how Tsunoda will get on in the Red Bull, but also how Lawson will get on back in the Racing Bulls. And I'll be back tomorrow after practice to let you know how things are shaping up.